Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the long game advantage. And I am glad to have with me Miss Jennifer Panczyszyn, who is a successful financial advisor with more than 13 years experience in the financial advising area. She's with Edward Jones, and she's also a founder of JJ's Safe House, which is a domestic violence shelter specifically for Fulton County residents. And I've had her on the show before, and I'm just so glad to have her back. And we're going to talk about what's going on in the economy, and of course with some interesting topics that are hitting toward the end of this year. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be back. It's been a heck of a year for sure.
It has, especially for those that are investing and they're seeing returns happening.
Correct. The market's done really well this year. So I'm going to just cover 5 different areas, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into what's really going on in your portfolio. So Feds are likely to continue easing policy. However, the rate cutting cycle could be shallower than previously expected, meaning that interest rate cuts, right? That's what we're talking about, where the rates are going to come down. Inflation should continue to trend towards a Fed's 2% target, but likely not without some bumps in the roads, right? We'll talk a little bit about that. We've seen signs of moderation in labor market conditions over the past year. We expect a continued cooling, but not a collapse of the labor market. I know we felt it here locally a little bit with some automotive. The real GDP is expected to grow between 1.6% and 2% in the quarters ahead, which is consistent with long-term estimates. Easing monetary policy could provide support to economic growth over the coming year. And then policy-related uncertainty could drive market volatility. We recommend maintaining that long-term focus and using those pockets of volatility to add to your investments. Right. So for those of you that are sitting with cash on the side, you're probably going to see some of that volatility opportunity coming up for you. Real talk, right? Those are some pretty big things that we see going on. I think one of my favorite quotes from Peter Lynch is, "Far more money has been lost by investors trying to anticipate the correction than lost in the correction themselves." Right? So what does that mean? That means that you, when you're making your long-term goals, that you're staying invested to them and you're not letting the emotion take over your money. Your financial advisors, your CPAs, your estate planning attorneys should all be working together to help you stay in that long-term environment.
That's interesting you say that, because I just had a conversation with someone, and I was just reiterating, don't let the politics get in the way of good investing, and making sure that if you're doing that you're thinking long term, because it's not tomorrow, it's down the road. You really have to be mindful. And sometimes it doesn't even make a play into it. People are shocked by hearing that.
Right, you're right. So you have to have your today money, right? And a good advisor will make sure you're sitting on your cash on the sidelines for that today money. But the other money that you are invested in is long-term money. That's your 3, 5, 10, 15-year out money, right? So what's happened in the past is just as important sometimes as what's happening in the future, because history typically repeats itself. So historically, right, since the big crisis in 08 and 09, the markets have performed reasonably well. The S&P has returned 14% annually every year since 2009.
That's good money.
That's very good money. And so when you think about that as a whole, right? I mean, in 2021, we had a rough pullback in the year, but the average has been that 14%. Right? Technology, right? When you're looking at stocks and you're looking at different investments, technology has done really well. Communications have done really well. Consumer discretionary has done extremely well. The only sector that hasn't done very well this year is medical.
And do you think it's because they're comparing it to what happened from COVID, or, like that, again, that was high because everybody was paying attention to the medical side and trying to find, the vaccine. But do you think it's just back down because...
Could be from R&D, right? When during COVID, the R&D money was being released, right?
A lot of research and development.
Correct. So it could be a part of that. I'm not really sure I can tell you why a sector's up or down, right? I mean, like if we could do that, everybody.
I thought I'd take a guess. I don't know.
Yeah. The whole idea behind, like, as you said, long term, right? You make that goal and you stay in that goal. Now, things happen, which is the whole reason why you should be meeting with your advisor throughout the year, even if you're just having conversations. In my practice, in order to become a client of mine, you have to agree to meet with me at least once a year. It's just part of the process. I need you to be vested in the amount of work that I'm doing because I care about your goals and I care about how your money's performing. And so I want you to be as invested in that as well.
Well, that investment, especially during different times of the year, my guess is that you might be hearing from a number of your clients because it's toward the end of the year and they've got to figure out what they're doing. And I'm going to say the 2 T's, tariffs and taxes. Whoa, TT. Can you talk a little about that and how that's impacting some of the conversations?
Yeah, so the tax laws are set to sunset in 2025. Now that Trump's in office, it's kind of sitting on the back burner. We have not heard any information of what the changes are going to be for 2025 at this point. However, it is definitely on our radar of watching to see what the changes will be. As for tariffs, they are definitely a key aspect of his administration policy. I think he's got a 10% proposed tariff across the board. Some of the implications can be, tariffs can protect the U.S. manufacturing interest, but it can lower growth and put some upward pressure on inflation. So that's one of them. The U.S. is more isolated, too, from trade perspective and service-based economy. So tariff impact could be contained. We, again, are expecting some volatility with that, and that's your opportunity to buy. We don't want to sell when we have the volatility. We want to be buying when we have that volatility. So holding hands with your financial advisor, again, is to say, where are we at? What do we need to do? If you're top heavy in a sector in your portfolio, it's a great opportunity to be having those conversations, especially before year end. If you want to do any tax loss harvesting or you need to do any, you can withstand to take some gains this year, then you take those gains, right? And sit on the sidelines with some cash if you think the opportunity is coming up. But once again, you always got to go back to you cannot time the market. Just does not. If we could time the market, right. What is the outside?
We'd be very rich, wouldn't we?
Correct.
What is the thing with taxes? And you said, you mentioned tariffs and the 10% taxes because individuals are just not sure. And I know there's some tax changes, but when you're talking to your financial advisor, you also need to be talking to your CPA is what I'm guessing.
Correct. That's part of my practice is working with CPAs and working with the attorneys for my clients to say, where are they at, right? Can they, again, withstand to take some profits this year? Maybe they need to have a little bit of a loss. I'm looking at cap gains. I'm looking at all of those things for their taxes, right? We typically say this. If you look back 10, 15 years ago, can you say that taxes have went down?
No.
So when I'm planning for a client, I plan with that intention that taxes are not going to go down. Taxes are going to continue to increase as our economy increases, and even if you look at inflation, right? The average inflation over the last 30 years has been 3%. Pretty good. Now people will say, well, that's not what I'm paying in the grocery store. That's a whole nother level of supply and demand, which we won't get into that today. However, that tax piece matters because if you're going to retire, right, you're making $50,000 and your tax bracket's 10, but then you go to retire and that $50,000, now you're going to get taxed on 15, it matters. So as a financial advisor, when I'm planning that out, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years in retirement, I'm planning for them to have a tax bill every year. And it's not going down.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not realistic to think that it would go down. But people are saying, well, maybe I can get out of the taxes if I do XYZ with my investments.
Well, so that's a whole nother level, right?
Right, yeah.
There is ways to tax shelter money. And we do that all the time. But however you're tax sheltering now, eventually someone will be paying that tax. Maybe it won't be you, maybe it'll be your heirs. But again, someone's paying for that. And, we want to tax shelter what we can tax shelter that makes the most sense. But again, we look at both sides of that. Does it make sense? I'm calling CPAs, especially right now as we're heading into the end of the year, quite a bit to say, I have a client that has a required minimum distribution this year of $50,000. If this client takes $70,000, what will it do to her tax bracket? And that CPA can give me that information. And if it makes sense, then we take an extra 20 to keep her in the same bracket. But that is tax planning, and that's my job to work with their CPAs.
Yes, so this is really a lesson for those that are really thinking about their financial advisor and who they're selecting when you're talking with them and they don't even ask you who your CPA is, or they're not really interested in that tax side at all. They're really just trying to sell some kind of, some product that they have. Also, too, there's this whole big thing about insurance. Some of the financial advisors, can you speak to that too?
So part of the reason I came to Edward Jones is because we do not have any proprietary items. I am not told what I have to sell to, what products I have to sell and what companies we have to sell. Now, Edward Jones does a fantastic job of vetting those insurance companies that are out there to tell us what products they have and who's, got the best product of the best offer. So we're able to go out and find what makes the most sense for our clients by companies that are already vetted, right? Insurance is very interesting. So for me as a financial planner, financial advisor, is to fill a bucket of time. And that's what life insurance is for. Now, there's other types of insurance that you can buy that make sense too. There's many different things that we can fill buckets with. You've got long-term care insurance. You've got an annuity that has a long-term care rider in it. You have a second to die policy. But again, that's my job to find out what your goal is, what the client's goal is, what gap are we trying to fill? So what is the most economical, best product to fill that gap for that client at that time? So yes, life insurance is an interesting animal for sure. It's a necessity for most people. It is, but not for all people. Mm-hmm. And ideally, you would get to a point in your life where your assets are at the point where you don't need the life insurance. That's always my goal with clients. Right? Mm-hmm. Let's protect what you need protected now. And then we also are investing in this side to make sure when we get to where you're done working, you don't need the life insurance anymore. We've done all the work that we need to do, and now you can go live in your retirement.
There's another T. We've talked about tariffs. We talked about taxes. The last one that I know that a number of clients, I know business clients that I interact with, or clients of mine or clients of others, they talk about trusts. And we talk about succession planning, and we talk about what that looks like, and trust is the other T. Can you speak a little bit about trust? And again, we're talking about that long game advantage.
Yeah, so I work with quite a few attorneys here in town when it comes to trust agreements, right? They definitely can fill a bucket for a lot of clients. Not everyone needs a trust. There's multiple reasons of why you would do a trust, and there's multiple reasons why you wouldn't do a trust. Again, that's estate planning, and I work closely with attorneys to determine what makes the most sense for this particular client. And I have multiple attorneys that I work with in the city of Toledo that are very good. Very good. Some of them specialize in the bigger trusts, in the more complicated trusts. Some of them specialize in, making it as simple as possible to do your normal will and your healthcare power of attorney and your, durable power of attorneys. And then you've got attorneys that really specialize in special needs trust. That's a big deal today. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a lot of clients that have special needs children, and that's important that we are protecting that child if something happens to them. Again, it's my job to know what's out there, and it's my job to reach out to the experts to bring them into the equation.
Mm-hmm. And for those that are not in the state of Ohio or even in the Toledo area that are listening, this is a question you can take back to your financial advisor wherever you are and have that conversation with them about, is a trust the right path for me or not? And again, I work with so many entrepreneurs and business owners. They're not sure about even their succession planning. They thought originally they wanted to have Junior take over, and then Junior said, no, I don't want to do the business. And so then they were kind of stuck. They're looking around trying to figure out, and there's really only a couple of pathways from that point, which again, you sell off the business or the book of business, or you will it off to someone, or equity. We had someone on the show that talked about equity and actually gave it out to some employees.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, succession planning is really important when you're self-employed. It's very important. When I started JJ Safe House, I had no intentions of keeping that myself. It's a nonprofit, a 501c3. My whole intention was to be able to turn it over and have a succession plan. And we were able to do that. And the executive director and the president of the board have done a phenomenal job of running that nonprofit. I get roped in every now and again just to keep me up to date on how successful they've been and what they're doing. And I love every bit of that. Yeah. But you have to, that's the other part of building a succession plan. You have to be okay with letting it go. And that's more of, you talk about trust, but that's a trust between the client and the advisor, and having me trust that trust that we built help them make those tough decisions, because emotions come into money. It is my job to be able to go through that emotion with you, but I can take the emotion off the table to make some good decisions that matter to you and make sense for you and your whole family. I'm an accredited behavioral financial professional as well, so I have that designation, and I did that designation for that exact reason. Money makes emotional, and that's okay. It's real, and we have to address those emotions. But succession planning, I will tell you, that's probably one of the biggest things that come into play. is the emotional part of it.
Yes, because you've worked, especially if you've worked on that company for so long, it's your baby.
Correct.
And so you want to make sure that it's treated right. Or you've got your family name on it.
Correct.
There's a brand tied to it, so there's...
You're exactly right. It's no different than having a child, right? That's your baby. And how are you going to sell your baby off?
No.
That's right.
No. Well, let me ask you this. So what are you reading and what are you watching to relax?
What am I reading right now? I'm reading Gladwell, Blink, Outlier, and what is the last one I just read? Talking to Strangers. Oh, great books. Probably... Yeah, I should have read these earlier. I don't know why I didn't, but if you have a chance to read them, they're phenomenal. It talks a lot about like research, but it also ties it to human. It's really important to me that I stay on top of that. And, you know, in one of his book, he talks about, how do I make this like easy to understand? He talks about like when you're born into a family, and if you're not born with a family that has the resources, financial or the knowledge or, you know, the education to start their kids at an even plank, but the person next door to you does, right? So automatically the person that doesn't have those resources are already behind the 8 ball. And then it just walks you right through life, what that looks like. You know, you compare that 20-year-old to the same 20-year-old next door. Typically their level of success is completely different, right? Because your 20-year-old that didn't have the resources is trying to find them still, or the 20-year-old over here that had the resources, the education, the opportunity is already scaling way ahead of you. It's super interesting to me on how that's real. It has nothing to do with color, gender, has everything to do with that social economics. And I feel like that is, everybody should read that book. Yeah.
Well, I know that there are opportunities to have some discussions. Well, like when you get into these mini groups where you have other entrepreneurs, and I do encourage those that are out there that are just sole proprietors, drilling away, trying just, you know, keep the lights on, to seek out others that are in the entrepreneurial space. Ask them, who's financially advising you? Who's working with you on, and that's where some of that knowledge, if you're not brought up or you don't have people around you, this is the way to go out and seek it. Do not hesitate to go find people who,
Correct.
And they're out there. So don't feel that they're not. They're out there.
Yes. If you're in a crowd of other entrepreneurs, most of the time they will share with you. My son is an entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur since the little guy was born. He has a very successful company in Mentor, Ohio, and he does a lot of mentoring. Like, he really will reach out. If I say, hey, bud, I've got a kid that's coming out of college, you know, not sure where he's headed, will you have a conversation with him? He does it all the time. He's 32 years old, and he is your epitome of an entrepreneur. And so it's very interesting. He's done a couple of speeches at Kent State University, which is where he graduated from. And like, he loves doing that. He loves reaching out to say, hey, I use this person, or I'm doing this, or, you know, those are the people that you surround yourself with. You know, you are your environment. So who you're surrounding yourself with and who you're hanging out with, you will reap the results from that for sure.
That's excellent. Well, I can't thank you enough. Time goes by so quickly when you come on the show and we get talking about these topics. I can't thank you enough for coming on, Jennifer.
Thank you. One more quote I want to give you to everyone that's out there in this market right now. This is Warren Buffett. The stock market is a device to transfer from the impatient to the patient.
That's a good
your
word.
long-term goal. Yeah, hang in there, you guys. Hang in there.
And with that said, I hope that everybody's listening is hanging on with us. I want to thank you, as I know we're wrapping up the year here in the next couple of weeks, for listening, tuning in, just sharing the show. Don't forget to sign up for the Pin Leader Path. That is a new book that's coming out March of 2025. You can find it at www.mazeassociatesltd.com. Sign up for the waitlist. It's going to be fantastic. We talk about effective leaders and also about AI and how that's making an impact in the economy. So until next time.
The Pin Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Maze & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.mazeassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pin Leader podcast and share with others.